Hello everyone and welcome to the first 50 days of my time at Portia. I know that 100 days sounds a lot better on YouTube, but you can see already how incredibly long this video is. So I thought it would be better to split these into 50 days, same as I did with the Sandrock Let's Play. And yeah, I don't have more to say about my intro, so grab a snack, some water, make yourself comfy, and without further ado, enjoy the video. Every good life sim starts off with the character creator, and while I'm busy trying to find a hairstyle that doesn't look too horrible on me, let me quickly explain what Portia even is. So for the uninitiated, my time at Portia is a story-focused life sim that takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. You play as a builder and your main job is to help improve and better the town of Portia. But aside from commissions, there is a lot more to discover. We get to explore long-forgotten ruins, partake in the most wholesome events, befriend and even romance the locals, and restore Portia to its former glory. Once I was happy with my builder, it was finally time to set sail.
Well, good luck to you.
Thanks.
Oh my god, she's looking horrible. After a very long and wobbly boat trip, we finally arrive at the Portia harbor, where we get introduced to Presley, commissioner of the Commerce Guild and kinda like our boss. He takes us to our pa's old workshop, which is going to be our new home. Doesn't look too impressive right now, but it will be very soon, don't you worry. The day automatically ends after Presley drops you off at the workshop, so the next morning I headed straight into town, more specifically inside the Commerce Guild, where Presley explained how the guild works and what my job as a builder is. In short, the Commerce Guild focuses on trade, business, economic development, and of course, commerce. I can accept commissions here every single day, but first I needed to prove myself in the form of a builder test. Before doing that, I went exploring around town, and of course introduced myself to the locals. There are so many different people that you get to meet throughout the story. Some are more relevant than others, so I'm gonna highlight the ones that I'll interact the most with. Today I met Antoine, the Commerce Guild secretary, and a beautiful flower, love that for him. Oaks, the adopted son of Abu the bear. Yes, you heard that correctly, there's an actual bear that you can befriend. Pinky, the stray cat. Nora, who works for the Church of the Light. Phyllis, the nurse. Emily, who owns a ranch, and Toddy, the fisherman. I mean, you can say what you want about the characters, as cursed as some of them might look, but there is a lot of charm to this game. Once I was back at home, I crafted a simple axe and pickaxe with a few pieces of wood and stone that I found laying around. The workshop is one of the most important, if not the most important place in the entire game. Here I can craft tools, weapons, make even better machines, and basically create every single item that we'll need from here on out. It already comes with a free work table, a small assembly station, as well as some basic recipes and diagrams. Early on this is all nice and simple, but things will get more complex the more we advance the story. As I made my way back into town, I came across Remington, one of the 3 Civil Corps members, and he informed me about the abandoned ruins and how these function. I had no intentions of wandering inside a spooky old ruin right now, so I'll come back to that in a bit. Shortly after, I bumped into Arlo, another Civil Corps member, and a potential future husband for yours truly. Before getting more sidetracked, I showed Presley the tools that I made, and my second task was to make my very first machine, being a stone furnace. While chopping down a tree, I obtained my first skill point, which I put into the mastery of the axe for a decreased stamina consumption while using the axe. Level ups are very frequent early on, so I'm not gonna mention this every single time when it happens. After gathering a couple more materials, I had everything that I needed for the stone furnace, which I proudly presented to Presley. With that, I passed the test, and as promised, he rewarded me with my builder license. Now I only needed to speak with the mayor and register my workshop. I decided to name my workshop Skyforge again. I took this name back when I played Sandrock as a joke. It was the very first search result that came up on Google back then, but honestly, I really grew to like it. I was then tasked to go back and speak with Presley again, and here is where we get introduced to Higgins. Currently the best builder in town, so naturally he's our biggest rival. Arlo stopped by as well, and he gave me my first big job. They want to build a bridge over to Amber Island, and for that I'll need to provide 3 separate structures. With my workshop and builder license in check, I was now allowed to accept commissions. I'll be checking the commission board almost every day from now on, as this is going to be my main source of income. The first one I accepted was from Toddy, who wanted 6 stone stools. Throughout this playthrough you will see my current objective on the right side of the screen. The yellow ones are main missions, and the blue ones are either commissions or side quests. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna go over every single quest that I do, especially not the commissions, but I will try my best to always highlight the story-related ones. Back at my workshop, I crafted my first of many wooden chests, and I placed it down right next to the house. I ended up buying the deluxe edition this time, since it was on sale. It's only player and NPC cosmetics, and unfortunately you have almost no inventory slots at the beginning, so I was only able to open one of the letters right now. And after a ton of back and forth between all of the cute outfits, I went with a casual black top and brown pants. Nothing too fancy, but certainly more fashionable than what I had on before. The remaining day was spent exploring the area, beating up a few of the local llamas, and taking a stroll on the Portia bus. This game is so freaking adorable. The next morning I had a few interesting letters waiting for me. One was from Arlo, letting me know that I can commission the Civil Corps to gather materials from the hazardous ruins, which is not relevant right now, but it will be a bit later. And Polly requested 3 copper plates. He works at the local furniture store. Wait, I haven't seen, yes, Gust, I remember you.
Builder. I'd love to stop and chat. Tea, cake and all, but I'm busy. So, good day.
It's Elliot. Since I needed copper for the bridge construction as well, it was time to head inside the mines. Or abandoned ruins as they're called here. Ruin diving is pretty unique in the My Time series. You have to pay a weekly fee, which might sound a little odd at first, but this will provide you with the necessary equipment you need down here, like a jetpack and a relic scanner. Down here we can find copper and tin ore, and each ruin also has unique materials that you can discover, like this data disk and a weird glass jar piece. The glass jar is part of a relic that I can assemble, but I won't be doing this for a very long time. After a lengthy diving session, I had more than enough stone to finish the stone stool commission for Toddy. Right after dropping those off, I ran into QQ, Gust's loyal pet, and then I met with Lee, pastor of the Church of the Light. The data disk that I found before can be donated to either the church or the research center. The Church of the Light has an own store where you can buy farming equipment and special seeds, but right now the research center is way more important, since these guys can give me diagrams for improved or even new machines. On Friday I said hello to Sophie, Emily's grandmother, and McDonald. From him I can buy livestock in the future. While chopping down some trees near my house, I reached level 6 and put the first skill point into Commerce Hotshot, which is arguably one of the best skills to have early on. Each level increases the workshop points and rewards that I get for completing commissions, which is pretty damn good. And speaking about commissions, I finished another one shortly after for the local doctor, Mr. Xu. I had enough goals now to afford 1 tool upgrade kit, and then I had a look at the bridge diagrams. I needed to make 2 head pieces and 1 of the bridge body, and since I'm gonna need hardwood for the head, it made more sense to upgrade the axe first. God, you guys are so ugly. What happens if I attack you? I love how his buddies just don't care. Later in the evening I finished assembling a new machine, being the grinder, and this allowed me to start working on yet another new machine, the Civil Cutter. Day 6 was not very eventful. I was hanging around the ruins for most of the time, gathering more ore and data disks. Once I was happy with the amount of items that I collected, I had another epic battle with the funky looking ladybugs outside of the city gate, where after a little while, Mrs. Ladybug made an appearance. Man, she has so much HP, I don't know if I can take her. Die, Ladybug! Okay, I might have a chance. Huh? What? You cheating bitch. No. The fact that she just healed half of her health in like 2 seconds, what kind of ability is that? That's not fair. I was winning! Yeah, whatever. Ladybug. One day I'll get you. The civil cutter was finished later on, and with this I had every single machine to start working on the bridge diagrams. I crafted myself a basic fishing rod the other day, which I tested out the following morning. For this you only need some caterpillars as bait, a suitable fishing spot, and just a bit of patience. The minigame is to simply follow the fish with your mouse until the number reaches 0. Very easy at this spot right here, but there are more difficult catches out there and even king-sized fish. While looking for another spot to fish, I ran into Papa Bear Abu and I gifted him an apple that I found earlier, which he seemed to enjoy. Once my inventory was full, I made my way back into town, and I sold almost every single fish that I caught, except for the catfish, since I knew that these could be used for cooking. And I decided to spend my hard-earned money on an inventory expansion. These get more expensive for each row you unlock, so the next one will already be 600 golds. Yikes. But definitely worth the money. I also grabbed another tool upgrade kit, and with that I crafted a bronze pickaxe. When I introduced myself to Emily a few days ago, she asked me to build a planter box and to cultivate some wheat for her, which I started on today. Portia has a very simple farming mechanic. You only need this small box, put the seeds in, a bit of fertilizer, and that's it. There's no plowing nor any watering. But there are plants that can only grow during specific seasons, and later on I can also get my hands on fruit trees, which I was already looking forward to. If you watched any of my other videos before, you know I love my fruit trees. Gotta have those. At around 7 in the evening, we had our first of many fireside meetings. These gatherings are at least once per week, or whenever there's a bigger event happening. Gale was informing everyone about the Amber Island Bridge project, which of course, yours truly was assigned to, much to the dismay of Higgins. But more importantly, he announced that the city was preparing for the DD transport system. And oh boy, was I excited about this. We'll come back to that in a bit. I finished the first bridgehead on Monday morning, tested out the new bronze axe by breaking some of the bigger rocks around my house, which gained me yet another skill point. And this one went into the Commerce Hotshot yet again, which was now fully maxed out. I gave Petra, one of the 2 ladies working at the research center, 5 data disks so she can work on a new diagram for me, and lastly I visited the tree farm for the first time, where I met Dawa and ate it. The next day I finished the second bridgehead, and then I went out exploring the rest of the map. The fishing event was coming up soon, and if I wanted to participate in that, I needed a buttload of bait. I only had a couple of caterpillars on me, and these were gifted to me, so I had no idea where to obtain them at first. I ran along the city walls, chopping down every small tree and bush that I saw, since the description read that the caterpillars like to hide among bushes, but it turns out that they can be found at these herb gathering spots, though it's not a guaranteed drop. You can also buy caterpillars from a specific shop, but again, I didn't know that at the time. I upgraded my sword later that day, and I started to assemble the bridge body, which I finished on Wednesday morning. I love how you can just hold every single item in your hand, no matter how heavy it is. It is so silly. I mounted all 3 of the pieces at their designated spots, and now I had access to Amber Island. I had mad crabs waiting for me on the other side, a blocked off cave, and a few random treasure chests. For finishing my first big commission, I got 1,800 golds and enough XP for another level. Most of the golds were immediately dumped into a yard expansion. Not that I needed it right now, but trust me, we're gonna get so many more machines later on. The wheat was done growing today, which I showed to Emily, and she was so impressed with the results that she ordered 3 planter boxes from me. Since the workbench can only be moved via the construction menu, I went over to A&G Construction, Albert's and Gust's workplace, and while there, I had a look at the upgrade requirements for both the bench and the assembly station. It wasn't too bad, but I was still missing a few materials for that. I got a letter from the Civil Corps earlier that day where they informed me about a new ruin that opened up in the middle of town, and since I was curious, I decided to check it out right away. Here I can find iron and lead ore along with more components that I'll need for more advanced machinery. Not too long after I finished mining, I found 2 identical eyeglasses, and with that I had a new quest added to my log. I showed these to Merlin and Petra. Merlin said that she wanted to take a closer look at them and said I can check back the next morning again. While there, I also handed Petra more data disks since she was already done with the previous research. Later we had another fireside meeting where Gale warned us about some thieves running amok. Several items had gone missing this week, and Martha pointed out that it must have been Huss and Tuss, the two bandit brothers. So apparently these guys are known around these parts.
And my wheel of cheese!
Day 12 was a very exciting day. Fishing day to be precise. The very first event of the season. Before that I had a quick chat with Gale about the spooky cave that we saw on Amber Island. Long story short, he wants to set up a tourist attraction in there, and for that we needed a battery to fix up the old generator. Of course I accepted the commission, and then it was time to start fishing. In order to participate, you have to pay an entrance fee of 200 goals, and then you have 3 minutes to reel in as many fish as possible. There is unfortunately a little bit of RNG involved in here as well, since there are different types of fish that can spawn during the event, and some of them give a lot more points than others. I got a lot of high quality fish on the first round that I've never even seen before, bumping me up over 300 points. I ran out of bait in the middle of that, but it didn't even matter. I was miles ahead of everyone and won first place. Since I wanted to keep playing, I quickly googled if I can obtain bait elsewhere, and it turns out that you can buy these at Sophie's Ranch. For an absurd price, $4 for one single caterpillar is insane, Granny Sophie. Like, I get it, times are tough, but this is just robbery. But if I wanted to keep playing, I had no other choice. So I bought 100 pieces of bait, rushed all the way back to the event, and continued fishing, landing in first place once again. And of course, I did the exact same thing on Friday, since this is a 2-day event. Before the festival started, I set up a blueprint for a civil furnace, which is basically an upgraded version of the stone furnace, and then I spoke with Merlin about the lenses I gave to her the other day. She said that these were used for color blindness back in the day, and there might be someone in town who could use these. Today I was not so lucky with fishing. I lost to Papa Bear Abu, who was using his bare hands, which I found a little unfair, but okay. In between fishing rounds I spoke with Sanwa, one of the 7 Hulu brothers, and he used to own a barber shop in town, though he had to give up his business due to his bad vision, but thanks to the new and improved glasses I just obtained, he said he can finally resume his work again. Sanwa told me to stop by sometime and that the first haircut is going to be on the house. After the event was over, I had a look at the gift exchange, where I ended up with the fisherman's hat. In hindsight, I should have definitely bought some of the furniture pieces instead, but oh well. Aside from the festival badges, I was also rewarded with a couple of high-quality cooked dishes. The bacon fish roll is a love gift for Gust, and the creamy salmon stew was perfect for Petra, so I'm gonna hold on to these. I stopped by the Commerce Guild later, where I saw that the Skyforge was already on the 3rd spot with 462 points. Not too bad. Day 14 I received the blender diagram, then visited Samwa's barbershop, and I was very delighted to see that he had more hairstyles available for me. I ended up with this half ponytail kinda look, but it didn't even matter because not even 3 minutes later I picked up the rest of the DLC outfits and I immediately fell in love with the Sandrock deputy set. Finally, I can say we are looking hella cute. Definitely my favorite outfit so far. Mainly just because of the hair. And since we're on the topic of Sandrock, I do also have a 100 Days mega movie for my time at Sandrock, where I play through the entire story. It is in fact to this day the longest video on my channel, so you'll be busy with that one for a while. Just wanted to mention it quickly because I've had multiple people ask for a Sandrock video before, so there you go. Anyways, I spent most of my day inside the abandoned ruin looking for a spring so that I can craft the removable battery, but I had no luck with that. I did manage to finish the civil furnace the following morning, which is gonna allow me to smelt new ore types. I bought 4 upgrade kits while in town since they were a lot cheaper that day. Yes, there is a market price in this game that shifts every single day, not only for the items that the vendors sell, but also for your own. I was in the ruin later, where I thankfully found the spring that I was looking for. I gave Petra once again more discs so she can work on better diagrams for me, and I'm not gonna mention this anymore unless there is a main quest tied to this. While gathering wood later, I spotted Gust, who was practicing his painting skills by the river.
Now I can't wash my brush.
Yes, this is of course the exact same reaction that I had, not being worried that his pig drank poisoned water, but of course the brush is unusable now. No joke, I thought that QQ was dead for a second. Gust had to leave shortly after, and because I'm such a nice person, I picked up some fresh water for him. This was the first time where I had a look at the relation perks in the menu, and I definitely wanted to prioritize befriending Gust. Since already at buddy status, I get 3% off when upgrading any of my machines in my workshop. This doesn't sound too crazy right now, but these upgrades get very expensive later on. Before going to bed, I made an iron pick, and at last I finished the removable battery. Upon walking out of my house on Tuesday morning, I had Agent T and his partner Agent H waiting for me, who are part of the Free City Debt Collection Agency. According to them, my father had accumulated about 50,000 goals in debt from his business, and because I cannot find him anywhere, this automatically falls onto me. I had 1 week to accumulate the required amount of goals, otherwise they said they will have to inform the Civil Corps. Now, I don't know much about debts, okay, but that doesn't sound quite right to me. I know a villain when I see one, alright, and these guys might just have the goofiest villain run I've ever seen. Before going into town, I upgraded my axe to iron quality, and then I spoke with Martha, who told me that Isaac is usually the person who's responsible for debt collection around Portia. Upon talking with him, he told me that my dad never had any debt. Ever. And the two guys that approached me this morning were probably just Tuss and Hus, the bandit brothers, or as Isaac said, a pair of imbeciles. Lastly, I met with Arlo about the matter, and he assured me that I had nothing to fear from them, and that he'll be there when they visit me again next time. With all of that out of the way, I ventured over to Amber Island and I started to explore the newly opened up cave. Not too long after entering, I came face to face with a giant snail lob, and with that I had my first mini-boss encounter. This guy had quite a few funny moves, but ultimately it wasn't really a challenge. Victory was mine. I found myself in a pretty spacious room shortly after, where I installed the battery and I turned on the generator. I have no idea what the battery and the generator are for, this never gets explained, and I also haven't returned here ever since. But anyways, venturing further inside the cave system, I found so many bandy rats. These were pretty much the only mob that I encountered here. After a couple of minutes, I found myself in, yet again, a suspiciously large and open room, and of course that meant it was another boss. This time it was the Bandy Rat Prince and his lackeys. This was definitely more difficult than the snail from before, but even so, he stood no chance against me. As a reward, I got a few data disks and a small engine, which I'm gonna need very soon. The sofa he was sitting on belonged to Presley, and I also found a couple of other stolen items laying around, which I took with me. I informed Arlo and the other members of the Civil Corps about the rat nest, talked with Mayor Gale, who gave me a buttload of money for the finished commission, and for the rest of the day I returned the stolen items to everyone. On day 17 I accepted a side quest for Arlo, where he wanted me to investigate something unusual with him. Of course I accepted, and then I watched as he slowly disappeared before my very own eyes. What a guy. This was one of those few quests that had a time limit, so I met up with him shortly after, right next to my workshop. This mission had me confused for a few minutes, since it only said that I had to look around and look for clues. And there were these animal footprints on the ground, but I couldn't interact with them. I thought this was bugged at first, since I really couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do here. After a little while I turned off the grass textures in the settings, truly horrifying, and this actually did the trick. I found a little bit of llama fur tucked away in the corner, which I showed to him. Next up was near Papa Bear's house, where we found some old mucus, and finally the tracks led towards the waterfall, where we fought a couple of jump dancers. Nasty looking piranhas that can walk as well as swim. He said that the tracks stopped here next to the river, so our little trip was concluded for now. And let's all take a moment to appreciate the beautiful grass textures. In town I came across Sam, the third and final member of the Civil Corps, who was stationed in front of the gate that led into the collapsed wasteland. She said that if I wanted to enter, I had to prove myself against the Civil Corps, which is kind of a wild ask, considering I was just outside the city walls with a Civil Corps member fighting some mobs. But I had no intentions of exploring that area right now anyways. That's something for future me. On this rainy morning, I had Presley outside my workshop, who told me that I can now accept DD commissions. I have been waiting for this, so I immediately rushed into town and secured one DD transport job for myself. The DD system is, simply put, fast travel. But the job that I accepted was only for the vehicle itself. The DD stop requires a separate structure, which we'll get to in a bit. One nice detail about Portia is that whenever it rains, almost all of the townies have these adorable umbrella hats on. So cute. I wanted to see if I even had a chance against any of the Civil Corps members, since all of them were a lot higher level than me, but somehow I actually won the match against Remington. With this victory, I was allowed to venture inside the wasteland, but again, I had other things on my mind now. Petra explained to me that I will need a small engine to power these, and apparently I can find them in the hazardous ruins, which is located in the wasteland. But this had me once again confused for a second, since I already found 2 engines while in the mines a few days ago. So I'm not really sure why they only mentioned the hazardous ruins here, but anyways. In preparation for the upcoming commissions, I made sure to set up a second civil furnace, and of course I started on the DD transport. For this I needed glass, bronze bars, the small engine, rubber tires, and so much more. Thanks to my preparations, I was already done with this the next day. I informed Antoine about the finished transport, and now we only needed the stop signs to actually use the DDs. Before we get to that, it was time for the Day of the Bright Sun, one of the more unique festivals the game has to offer. Every single townie has to donate 1 item to Mayor Gale before the event starts. And on the day of the festival, a giant air balloon will fly all over Portia and drop off the gifts that everyone donated. It's a very simple but fun activity. I didn't expect to receive anything super useful from this, but I did manage to get my hands on 2 small engines. After the event was over, I went to visit Ginger, Gust's younger sister, and she's one of the more interesting characters. She asked me to bring her a few pieces of topaz, since she cannot go outside during the day. I'm not really sure why, but maybe we're gonna find out later. Then I had a chat with Phyllis, who asked if I could find some venom for her. But since I had no idea where to get that, I ended up commissioning the Civil Corps for that, which is something that I'm gonna do a lot over the span of this playthrough. You simply post the required item on the board inside the headquarters, pay the fee, and then you only have to wait a few days. It's so incredibly useful, and I'm so glad that this feature exists. I accepted a second DD transport job before going back to my workshop, and here is where I learned that you can accept 1 story-based commission, which in this case is the one for the DDs, as well as 1 regular commission from the townies at the same time. This was very important knowledge, since the game doesn't tell you about that. On Saturday I reached level 17 and I put the first skill point into Artian. This reduces the material cost at the workbench with each level. So I'm not really sure if this is actually worth it, especially this early on, but we'll see. I got the industrial cutter as well as the DD stop sign diagrams in my mail that day. I crafted 1 stone table and 2 stone stools for Isaac, so that he doesn't have to sit on the grass anymore when playing his board games. And then I spent a few hours inside the ruins. A little while later I found a pink leather sofa. I didn't even know that you could find furniture in here as well, and I displayed it inside my house. Furniture is kind of important in Portia, since every single piece can raise a specific stat. The sofa, for example, gives me +7 stamina, which is nothing crazy of course, but it's still a nice bonus to have. 21 started off with another visit from Agent T and H. I played along at first and told them that someone will bring the money here. And right on cue, Arlo showed up and chased those 2 buffoons off my property. Thank you very much, good sir. Now speaking about the Civil Core, I got the Venom samples in my mail, which I handed over to Phyllis. It was more expensive to commission the items than the actual reward she gave me, but I was mainly doing this quest for the free friendship points. It takes a very long time to befriend people in this game, so I have to take every opportunity that I get. Now that my workshop was at rank C, I was allowed to inspect items on the weekend. This is a little minigame that you can do every Saturday and Sunday at the Commerce Guild, where you have to find 2 spots that are flawed on different items in return for a couple of free goodies and workshop points. It's not very interesting to watch, so I'm only gonna mention it here once, but the rewards for doing these inspections are actually really decent, so I'm gonna try to remember this every weekend. Once I was done with that, I had a look at the workshop rankings again, and now the Skyforge was officially on the 2nd spot, right behind Higgins. Midday I made my first of many DD stop signs, which got mounted right next to my house. Before working on any other DD related items, I thought it was a good idea to make an industrial cutter first, which was assembled within the next couple of hours. And this was indeed the right call, since I'm gonna need a lot of bronze plates over the next couple of weeks. Upon walking outside my house the next morning, I found my mailbox smashed on the ground along with a note that read, "Lil Pest, you might notice work is a little harder this morning without your precious mailbox. It will be even harder without the resource box, and that I should quit doing stuff around Portia. Signed, X." First of all, very rude. Second, this is by far the worst blackmail I've ever received. In a game, of course. The mailbox was fixed within 2 seconds, and also I haven't even used the resource box yet, which is the one next to the mailbox. If they really wanted to screw me over, they should have broken my machines, or something like that. Make sure to like and subscribe for more villain tips, guys. Anyways, I finished another DD transport, said hello to Gust, and this pushed him to 2 hearts. Now I get the first bonus of the relationship perks, which is the 3% discount on home upgrades. At this point in the game, I still hadn't decided on who to romance, but Gust was also on my radar. I handed Antoine the finished vehicle, and I accepted yet another DD commission. These give by far the most amount of money out of any commission right now, so I'll be doing as many as I can. As I was running around in town, I noticed that one of my markers disappeared from the minimap. The yellow spots that you can see here are all for the DD spots that I can install. Yesterday it was 4 markers, but today it was only 3. This certainly wasn't my doing, since I only made 1 so far. And upon further inspection, I confirmed that someone else mounted a DD sign near the tree farm. Which was, of course, Higgins. Yep, if you're not fast enough, the other builders will take your job. I cannot allow any further disrespect upon the Skyforge, so I immediately rushed back home and finished another stop. This one got mounted down by the Portia harbor. I did a little bit of fishing while there, and now I was also finally able to test out the new transport system. Since I used quite a lot of my bait yesterday, I went to visit Sophie's ranch. Yeah, of course, I picked the absolute worst day to buy more lure because market price is up by 16%. It's $5 for one single caterpillar. What the hell, Sophie? Absolutely outrageous prices. To make matters even worse, I saw that Higgins placed yet another DD stop close to Amber Island. I don't think that I would have gotten any money for these anyways, since my current objective was to only place down 3 of these, but I don't know. I decided it was finally time to check out the collapsed wasteland, and it sure was collapsed. Excuse me, what the fuck is that? These silly guys are called Slurpees, and they were not too happy about my arrival here. Neither were these giant birds. I found a new fishing spot, which reminded me that I wanted to make a better rod, and I was really glad that I came here, as this fishing spot had a lot of high quality fish, like this pink one that sells for 320 goals. A little while later I came across our first hazardous ruins, the sewage plant, but I wasn't in the mood for combat right now, so I'll come back to this another day. Before going to bed, I finished another DD stop, which got placed next to the research center. This is not going to be the last one that I'll be making, but at least I was able to turn in the commission now for finishing 3 of these. Midday, I stopped by Emily's farm, who already had some ripe watermelons for picking. She handed me some free fertilizer, which I actually needed, and then I was mostly just running around, doing side quests and talking with a few of the townies. So moving over to day 25. This time I found my resource box vandalized upon walking outside of my house in the morning, with another note attached. This was my last chance to leave, so I left, right after finishing this fancy looking blender. The marker led me to the cave on Amber Island, where inside I overheard none other than Huss and Tuss. Finally, I had a chance to talk some sense into these guys, and by talking, I of course mean beating the ever-living crap out of them. Are you gonna do something? Well, that was easy. I informed Arlo about the bandits, accepted the final DD commission, mounted another stop next to the hazardous ruins, and while there, I decided to tackle the first level of the sewage plant. But before we get to that, I want to thank today's sponsor, me. I'm the sponsor, so don't click away, please. What, did you really think I was gonna bother you with an actual sponsor segment? Don't be ridiculous. Instead, I'm gonna bother you with the only thing that I have to offer, which is my YouTube membership. For only €1, you get early access to every single video. Usually it's 1 day. You support a human creator, you get a hand-drawn Junimo badge next to you, and your name will appear at the end of all of my videos, along with a few other things. Basically, you get special treatment like these really cool and epic people right here. So thank you again, me, for sponsoring this video. Moving along. Every ruin has several levels, and each level spans across multiple floors. Usually it's between 5 to 6. In order to advance, you have to defeat all of the enemies, and on other floors you simply have to navigate some obstacles. The final room on each level has a boss encounter that you have to defeat in order to complete the level. I'm gonna be real with you, this is like my least favorite part about these games. Sandrock also had multiple of these combat dungeons, and they were fine, but here in Portia they're so boring. Still, it is worth doing these since there are multiple treasure chests that you can find, and the rewards at the end are also really good. Friday was a busy day. First, I got the diagram for an industrial furnace, though I won't be making this for quite some time. Then I expanded my yard again because I knew that I will have to upgrade the assembly station sooner or later. And I also wanted to have a stable at some point. Walking into Portia shortly after, I saw that some of the townies gathered in front of the fountain. The water had been polluted and was no longer safe to consume. Sam informed us that even the river had this weird green color, and it seemed to come from the Bassanio waterfall, but the lift that led up there had been broken for years. So you know what that means? That's a job for everyone's favorite builder. Right after that, Gale pulled me aside and said that it was about time to start developing the cave on Amber Island into a tourist attraction.
You what?
Buddy, have you looked around for a second? I feel like we have more pressing matters to attend to first. Today I finished the last of the DD commissions, and I even got an achievement for that. For finishing every single DD commission, and no joke, I was so proud of that. A bit later I visited Adid and Dawa at the tree farm as they had a pampat infestation, and they asked if I could assist them somehow. I asked my research buddies for ideas, and Merlin told me that pampats are very sensitive to sound, so Petra will design a boombox for me. Saturday was just as busy. I had so many side quests pop up this morning, so that was mainly the focus for the day. I also started on the loudspeaker diagram that I got from Petra, but this thing needed 9 copper plates, and I didn't even have a single one right now. So that's gonna keep me busy for a while. Oh, is that who I think it is? Yes, the mysterious man! Hello? The mysterious man only visits Portia twice every season, and he has a lot of unique wares for sale. Most of these are furniture pieces and also very expensive. I was kinda tempted to buy the metal storage box since I won't have access to this in quite a while, but I decided to wait a bit more. At the Civil Corps office, I noticed that I can now file commissions for the sewage plant, which was an amazing discovery. These offer a ton of high-quality crafting materials for a very reasonable price. And speaking about commissions, today I accepted my first A-rank commission, which was for the Bassanio lift project. Back at the workshop, I finished the decor for the haunted cave at Amber Island, which I mounted shortly after, and finishing this pushed me to level 20. 28 was a glorious day, for I had finally enough materials to construct my very own stable. Unfortunately, horses weren't available right now, but at least I had everything prepared for one already. I had some money saved up again, and I decided to buy 2 of the metal storage boxes after all. I fixed the broken lift next to the waterfall, but it will need a control panel to fully function. And at last I had enough copper plates to finish the loudspeaker. I know it's a gramophone, but that's how it is described here. I rushed over to the tree farm and tested it out. Thanks to the loud sound it produced, the Pambats left shortly after, which means mission success. The Pambats did some serious damage to the trees. They need a lot of water and nutrients to recover again, so Edith asked if I was up for another commission, and of course I accepted. It's my job after all. As per usual, I asked Petra for advice, and she told me about an irrigation system she could come up with, but sadly I didn't have the required amount of data disks for that. So that's something we can focus on during summer. On this gloomy first day of summer, I received the monthly workshop rankings from the guild, and I am very happy to announce that I managed to hold the second spot. For landing in second place, I was rewarded with 10 data disks, 7,000 gold, and a lucky chest that contained a green rug. Now that I had the disks, I visited Petra again and I gave 6 of them to her. While in town, I mounted 2 streetlights around the plaza, as this was a highly requested commission from several of the townspeople. Then I spent a few hours gathering ores in the ruins, and while doing that, I reached level 21, maxing out the artisan perk at last. Now I'll have a 20% discount on all material costs while using the work table. Tuesday morning I got the diagrams for a water wheel, water engine, and storage. Petra mentioned here that I'll need a furnace, a cutter, and even a work table that can handle iron, which I already had. But what she doesn't mention here is that I will also need an upgraded assembly station for the water wheel. We'll get to that in a bit. Half of the day was me running around, doing a few side quests and waiting for my machines to finish. When I returned later, I was able to craft an Arditi stop, which got placed next to the Bassanio lift. And I was also able to finish this commission by placing down the lift controls that I made earlier that day. Now the elevator was fully operational. This unlocked a brand new area for me. I did want to explore this place, but not today. I had so many other things on my mind, like deforestation, for example. I informed Arlo that the lift was working again, and I started to assemble the water wheel. A little while ago, I accepted a commission from Arlo where he wanted me to make 3 pots of asteria. I was looking all over the map for the required materials, but I had no luck with this, so I ended up googling it that day, and it turns out the asteria flowers are in an area that I had no access to yet. In fact, it will be a while until I can actually go there. This is something that happens quite a lot, unfortunately. People request items or machines that I simply cannot obtain yet. If you fail to deliver, not only do you lose workshop reputation, but also friendship points with whoever said commission was. And in this case, it was with Arlo, which really sucked because I've been struggling so much to raise his friendship meter, but oh well. So yeah, after this, I was a lot more careful on what kind of commissions I accepted. On to more exciting matters. As I was running around the wasteland, I spotted a dog near the water. This little guy is called Scraps, and the people of Portia had been looking for him for several weeks now. He ran away from me when I came too close, or rather faded into the ether. I returned the good news to Polly, one of the few children of Portia, as she was very attached to the stray dog. She told me to make some dog food for him, which I already had on me. For some reason, this was one of the very few missions that I could remember, from my previous playthroughs I mean. I tracked down Scraps again, fed him some homemade dog food, and successfully gathered him back into town. I don't know what he was doing out there, but he has seen some shit, that's for sure. On 32, I was told by the civil court that they managed to track down the source of the pollution, which appears to be from a broken pipe located above the waterfall. And of course, they want me to go out and fix it. For this, I needed welding rods, which I haven't seen yet, so that's something for later. For now, I headed inside the hazardous ruin and started to go through the second level. I'm not gonna show these anymore, at least not from the sewage plant, since all of the levels look almost identical, and they also have the same mini-boss at the end. I did get a new crafting recipe upon finishing the level, which was for a triple barrel snakebite. This was for a gun, and since I didn't have any other ranged options right now, I crafted it. It doesn't shoot regular bullets, only these venom darts, which I can only make myself, so I'll have to be mindful on where to use these. I started to work on my first industrial furnace. I gifted Gus the 50th fish roll, and while there, I constructed a coop. For some reason, I didn't buy any chickens or ducks after that. I guess I was distracted, but I will remember to do that a bit later. I finished the industrial furnace the next day, and here is where I saw that I can make the welding rods with this. And I also finally noticed that the water wheel diagram needs an upgraded assembly station. So I rushed over to the construction center, and somehow I already had all of the stone and iron bars for the required upgrade. Pretty sweet. Most of the day was spent running around and chopping down every single tree in my vicinity. And I mean every single one. At this point in the game, I was really struggling to keep up with the insane amount of wood to power all of my machines. Unlike in Sandrock, you cannot choose yourself what kind of fuel you want to use, and unfortunately, most of my machines require wood. Like, the industrial furnace alone needs 60 pieces. That is crazy. So that's why the tree farm commission takes priority over everything else right now. Sunday and Monday was basically the same, just chopping down trees and keeping my machines running. By day 37, I had enough steel plates and welding rods to fix the broken pipe inside this old building. Sam was here as well, and she told me that someone intentionally caused the leak. Upon fixing it, we get one of those beautiful cutscenes again, as Sam and I were flushed down a giant hole in the ground. Miraculously, we both survived the fall. I'm glad that we have plot armor, and we had no other choice but to explore the unknown sewage system. I was really happy that Sam was here with me because I was a little underleveled for this area. One good thing at least was that I was able to test out my brand new gun, and it was fine, I guess. Honestly, it was pretty bad, so I'm gonna stick to my sword. This place was absolutely massive, had so many enemies, but also the occasional treasure chest. After about 15 minutes of running around with Sam, we find ourselves in a suspiciously large and open room. It was time for another boss battle against the Rat King himself, and this was so awful. Jesus. I was completely alone in the arena because Sam got thrown to the side before the battle started. Like, why? Why is she even here then? The Rat King had some of the worst hitboxes that I have ever seen in a game. He has this weird belly flop butt slam which comes out way too quick and also has a way bigger radius than it appears to be. I understand that this is an old game by now, but my god, this was so unenjoyable. If I didn't have all of the healing items on me, I would have not been able to do this. But eventually, I managed to defeat him. He also dropped the worst loot, by the way. Look, I know I'm being overly negative here, but I do also want to mention the frustrating parts about the game. Anyways, now that Sam and I found the exit, I made my way back into Portia. I saw that the water was safe to consume again, and of course I informed Gale about my epic battle against Rat Royalty. Lastly, I treated myself with a new planter box, which got placed behind the house, along with one apple and one apricot seed. On Wednesday I had a new side quest pop up on the map, and I had been waiting for this. McDonald asked if I could repair his stable, and within a matter of seconds the structure was as good as new. And I was over the moon when I checked the mailbox the following day, because now I was finally allowed to rent or buy a horse. Portia's map is pretty big. Even with the fast travel points, it can take several minutes to get from point A to B. Sadly, I didn't quite have enough money to be able to buy a horse, so I just rented one for now. I also really like how they kept the exact same horse design in Sandrock. The models look almost identical. I handed Gus a birthday present while in town, bumping him up to friend status. Once you reach 4 hearts with someone, you could start dating them, but I was still unsure on who to romance at this point. Back at the workshop, I mounted the last pieces onto the water wheel, finishing the entire structure, which was by far the biggest diagram I've made yet. I rode over to the tree farm and mounted both the engine and the wheel at their designated spots. And I thought that this would complete the main quest, but no, I had even more structures to make after that. Sprinklers and a water storage. Thankfully, the storage was way easier to make than the 2 previous blueprints, and the sprinklers only required a few copper pipes and valves, which I had plenty of. On day 40, I had a seemingly annoyed Gus in front of my door. He asked if I could exercise his stupid and outrageously fat pig, because he doesn't have any time for that. The dialogue in this game is wild. Since I actually care about my animals, I decided to take QQ on a stroll around town. I did have to keep a certain distance to him because otherwise he would simply lay down on his belly. Classic QQ. After we ran around the city, I went back to Gus and asked why he even owned a pig in the first place. He doesn't exactly strike me as a person who would enjoy having a pig around him, or any animal, or any living creature now that I think about it. He said that QQ was given to him by his master Verna, as she thought he was too boring and raising a pet might help expand Gus's horizon. She does have a point. Verna is an architect at the Vincent Design Institute. I was already familiar with her name, and I was curious if we get to see her at some point later on, like we do in Sandrock. Almost all of the townies gathered around the outer city gate to partake in today's activities, the martial arts tournament. I was pretty excited about this since I never participated myself before. There is a registration time like a day or 2 before the event starts, and I always forget to do that. Not this time though. On the wardroom you can see the lineup for today, and you can even bet on people, which can earn you more festival badges. The first round was me against Remington. This was pretty simple, especially because I already fought against Remington before, and despite him being a higher level than me, I still won. No skill issue this time. What I really like about this event is that you can also see other people fight. Like, Martha over here is absolutely destroying poor little McDonald. The next battle was against Stawa, who stood no chance against me. He was so much easier than Remington. With this win, I qualified myself for the finale, where I was up against Oaks. While he was a few levels lower than me, he was definitely the most challenging opponent. Also, one thing that I noticed while editing this, not everyone has the same attack animations. Remington has this foot kick, Antoine kinda just waves his arms around in a helicopter move, and Oaks has a ground slam and also a helicopter move. It's a nice little detail. This victory earned me 40 festival badges, a first aid kit, some food, and 2 oceans fortune. Upon consuming these, I permanently increased my attack by +1. Not really sure how impactful this actually is, but still a nice reward. The badges got exchanged for a bunch of different furniture pieces, boosting my attack stat by another 19 points. Before going to bed, I finished the water storage, and at last I was finally done with the irrigation system for the tree farm. It always feels amazing when you're done with a major commission, especially because there's usually an own cutscene playing for these. Adit and Dawa thanked me for my hard work and said that they can now open up the farm again. And aside from the usual commission fee, I will also receive wood deliveries every single day from here on out. Now you also know why I have this shipping bin next to my mailbox. This is exactly why I was prioritizing the tree farm repairs, because as I said before, it's been really tough to keep up with the crazy fuel consumption from my machines. You can also upgrade the delivery contract, which I did right away. Very expensive, but absolutely necessary. With that, I already more than doubled the amount of daily wood that I will get. I wanted to check the commission board after that, like I usually do by that time of the day, but upon entering the town square, something quite unusual happened. As I saw a massive structure crash land right before my very own eyes. Some of the townies were gathered in front of the gate that led into the wasteland, questioning Sam about what just happened. Remington showed up a few seconds later and explained to us that it was a relic that landed, and in the process it knocked over a tower which created a hole in the ground, which in return attracted a whole bunch of monsters. Of course, they asked me to fix it right away, but I was missing some of the materials for that, so sorry guys, gotta hold off those beasts a little longer. While I was in the area, I made sure to collect some animal fat from those giant birds, which were used to create a soap bar for Aided, or more specifically for Pinky. He threw the soap into water, and after Pinky drank some, she threw up the keys she had swallowed earlier this morning. And I have to ask, is this really how you would handle a situation like this? Like if your pet swallows a metal object, you just give them soap water and they just throw it up again? I've never seen this before. On Monday morning I was chilling at my workshop, slowly assembling a new printing press for the Portia Times. A bit later I had all of the necessary materials for the crash site. I saw Remington and Arlo fighting off the mobs, and I tried to help them at first, but I quickly realized that the enemies will just spawn infinitely here, so I quickly sealed off the hole in the wall. Once that was dealt with, we marveled at this giant relic before us, when suddenly a hatch opened and a yellow robot fell onto the ground. This is Mr. Ack. Love the Mars Attack reference, the former cook of this vessel. It seems like he was suffering from some sort of memory loss, at least partially, since he didn't even realize that the ship crash landed. We brought Mr. Ack to the Civil Corps headquarters, and for safety reasons he had to remain inside the cell. Gale, Merlin, and unfortunately Lee were also present during the interrogation. So Mr. Ack was on the Alter 1 space station, which was the relic that we saw land before, but despite saying that he was a chef, he wasn't actively working on there, at least not for the past 300 years, as he was in maintenance mode and only woke up when he landed here. Obviously, Merlin was more than fascinated by him. It's not every day that you meet a talking robot, but Lee, on the other hand, wanted to get rid of him. So I haven't really talked about the Church of the Light because I'm not super into my time lore. However, I do know that the Church of the Light is scared of everything relic related. They don't want anything to do with old world stuff, and certainly not with any unknown robots. I think Lee talks about the Day of the Calamity later on, which, in short, hundreds of years ago, humans created weapons and technology for war and mass destruction, which eventually led to humanity's downfall. This was then followed by the Age of Darkness, where humans were forced to live underground, facing starvation, loneliness, and even civil war. That's like the super short version of it. I read that off the wiki now because I was curious myself, and it's actually pretty interesting. Mr. Ack asked Arlo about his crewmates, but when Arlo inspected the ship, he said that none of the other robots made it. He was the only one they found. All of the other ones died hundreds of years ago. This game is unhinged, by the way, like holy hell. Ack was understandably quite down after hearing those news, or rather depressed. So to try and lighten up his mood, I brought him a glass of milk and I repaired his leg as well as his head wound. He thanked me for helping him, though he will have to remain inside the cell for the time being until Gale decides on what to do with him. On to more positive matters. Albert informed me that Gale has approved the building of a museum here in Portia. Emily commissioned an irrigation system similar to the one that I made for the tree farm, which I was not looking forward to, and I can now upgrade the relic scanner for more improved ruin diving. First I spoke with Emily about the irrigation system, and for that she wanted a well, which I'll need a new diagram for. And then I met up with Albert. They require a mechanical crane for the museum construction, and of course I told him that he can count on me. I gave Petra the required discs for both the crane as well as the well design, and after that I was busy gathering materials in the ruins. I was specifically looking for an industrial engine for the printing press. I also upgraded the relic scanner before entering, and now I can target 3 objects at once, and it will even outline the shape. Super handy, but even with that upgrade, I still didn't find what I was looking for. Moving over to day 45, where I got the new diagrams from Petra, both for the crane and the well. I finally remembered that I had a freaking coop in my yard, so I rushed over to the ranch where I bought 2 chickens and 2 ducks. I don't really care about the eggs, but the manure they produce is necessary for fertilizer, which so far I always had to buy from Sophie. Since I still hadn't found that engine, I put the printing press on hold for now, and instead I started to assemble the water well. I knew that the small engine was a reward for the level 1 and level 2 hazardous ruins, and since I didn't have any luck inside the regular ruins for an industrial engine, I thought maybe the higher levels will also have an engine as a reward. And sure enough, upon starting the 3rd level, I got an industrial engine from a treasure chest. In fact, I found a total of 5 of those upon finishing the entire level. This was absolutely worth the effort because now I can also commission the civil corps for this specific level, which is super handy. With the engine, I was finally able to finish the printing press. I also installed the water storage and a couple of sprinklers, completing Emily's irrigation system, and with that, I had just enough money to buy the best horse from McDonald's. I visited May in her office and handed her the finished printing press. She said that they cannot pay me right now, but apparently I will receive my money later with interest. So let's hope she keeps her word. The only active quest that I had in my journal at this point was the one for the construction crane. Before I could start on that, however, I needed to upgrade my assembly station a second time. I had nowhere near the required items for that, nor did I have enough money, so that's something for later. Back at the workshop, I saw that you can rename your mounts by clicking on the stable, everyone say hello to Torrent, and you can also level up their stats. One of the many smaller details that I love about this game is that you can actively see how your work as a builder affects the environment. Here we can see the new sprinkler system in action, as well as the giant water wheel in the back of the tree farm. I didn't really have any specific plans for the day, so I decided to take my buddy Torrent on a very long ride. Ever since I unlocked the new area next to the waterfall, I had a yellow marker on my minimap. This was for yet another DD stop, which I made in advance, and I mounted it at the spot. Unfortunately, there was very little to explore here. Aside from a buttload of different shaped trees and this one new herb, there wasn't really anything else here. I did a bit of fishing later in the evening, where I reeled in my very first king-sized fish, a golden salmon. I had no idea what to do with these yet, but if it's anything like in Sandrock, I'm gonna assume that I can donate these to the museum later on. As I was riding through town the next day, I spotted a familiar face. It was of course none other than Sleepyhead, aka Mint, an engineer from Vega 5 who was here to assist us with a very exciting new project. Gale announced that Portia and Sandrock have agreed to build a road through the Eufaula Desert. Because this is such a big project, there's going to be multiple phases for that. They will start the road from Sandrock as it is easier to work with the terrain, and during that we need to build a bridge that leads across the Portia River. I can accept commissions for that starting from tomorrow. I spent a little time in the ruins looking for old parts, as I wanted to upgrade my work table again. I did find enough of the materials, but I didn't have enough goals for that, so it was time to go back to fishing. I almost forgot that later in the evening we had yet another fireside meeting, and this time it was about Mr. Ack. I was really glad that Gale allowed him to stay after all. He's now officially a citizen of Sandrock. Oh my god, I wrote Sandrock instead of Portia. Ooh. He's now officially a citizen of Portia, and he wants to work as a cook. Also, Gale briefly mentioned that we have the necessary fundings to start on the museum construction now, which I was very much looking forward to. The road project as well as the museum construction will have to wait until the next 50 days though. I know it's a little lame to end here in the middle of the season, but these games, specifically Portia and Sandrock, take so much longer to record and edit than any other 100 days videos that I have on my channel. One in-game day is usually between 20 to 30 real-life minutes, sometimes it even goes up to an hour depending on what I'm doing, just to give you an idea on how long this whole process actually takes. But don't worry, I already started recording the next 50 days, and I'm gonna try my best to upload this as soon as I can. In the meantime, feel free to check out my other 100 days videos, and thanks for watching.